Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda is we have to redo this. We had an issue at the last meeting, but we need to elect a chair for the GRCSU board. So I'd open the floor to any nominations.
But before we do take nominations, I do just want to point out that the GRCSU does have established bylaws that do say that the chairmanship is rotated between districts. And so I just wanted to, start with that. How or why that, we came to establish this method, I don't know, but it was something that I discovered last year, actually. So.
Where are the bylaws? Are they on the website?
We used to rotate for every, like, this was back when it was just the three of us.
Yeah.
So we used to rotate that. Then it got to be, nobody really wanted to do it. You have some people that are extremely good at it, have the extra time to be able to put into it. And I would say especially now that we're all joined together. So we did vote at one of the meetings. This is years ago. I have no idea which one. Too many.
It's in the bylaws, section 1.
Well, no,
number 2.
Meredith, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying we did vote after that.
No, I understand, but
yes.
Nothing was changed to the bylaws to change the action. I was there. I remember we discussed it.
Right.
And we did talk about the fact that not every district should feel they have to have somebody who,
right.
Because somebody might not be, like you just said, be ready to take it for that district. But it is in the bylaws, so I don't know if we want to try to change that at some point, but it exists.
Yep.
Anyways, I think a call for a nomination was made.
Yes, Meredith.
I'd like to nominate Eric.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations?
I thought we needed a second, no?
No second, so. I'll nominate Lisa.
Okay. All right, do we have any other nominations? Okay, as suggested by our attorney, we will be doing a roll call vote for this. So when I call your name, we will just say either Eric or Lisa, and we will include Eric and Lisa in the vote as well. So I'll go with the list that I have right here. So begin with Lisa.
Lisa.
Okay. Lynette.
Lisa.
Mike.
Lisa.
Tina.
Lisa.
Amanda's not here, correct? Lance.
Eric.
Okay. Meredith.
Eric.
Tim.
Lisa.
Kristen.
Eric.
Okay, we're gonna just review one more time. We have 2, 3.
That tie again?
Nope, Lisa won.
What about Mary? Is someone here instead of Mary?
Lance.
Lance is?
And
Okay.
Eric, you voted for yours. Eric, yeah, sorry, I didn't pass it over.
Yeah, Eric.
Okay, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, tied.
All right. We do have one member who is absent right now, Amanda, who may be joining us later. So I just, what does the board wish to just, we'll go with this vote and then?
Well, if we wait for Amanda, I would suspect that the vote would be split. And then what do we do? End up
Already split, isn't it?
It's,
Tie right
right now
now?
it's 5, we have a vote of 5-4 in favor of Lisa.
Okay.
So,
With Amanda, it would be 5-5, it would be a split vote.
Make a motion based on the current number of votes that Lisa act as temporary chair.
Temporary, or are you going to go
Until-
with the vote?
Well, if we go with the vote, then it's permanent, but I'm happy to do that too.
Well, I'll mention that Mike's motion last month involved the fact that we did not have all the members of the board present for the vote.
My motion stands to have Lisa be the temporary chair until Amanda has a chance to vote.
Okay.
And we've decided to disregard the bylaws, is that clear?
yep. I think,
I think that's a problem going forward.
yeah, we definitely have, a split, and I think that, unfortunately, you know, those who are here able to vote, do make that vote binding, you know, and, I disagree with the fact that, we're not rotating, as we should, but,
So we have a motion on the floor, which is to have Lisa serve as temporary chair until Amanda can vote.
Unless the board wants to go with the 5-4 vote. As it is
I just have a
stands.
question, because last meeting I realized I was one of them. I apologize, I didn't even have my phone, so I couldn't attend, so I was one of them absent. I believe there was someone else besides me, but anyways, this could go on forever. If you keep saying we're gonna wait until everyone votes. It could be a forever thing, could be at every meeting.
That was the motion Mike made last month.
Yes, I know, and he just made it again. I'm just saying that,
I will withdraw that motion and make a motion that that Lisa is the elected chair. By vote. 5-4.
We have a motion, well, Amanda just joined. Amanda?
somebody sent her
I'm sure.
somebody sent her a text.
Okay, we're in the middle of voting for board chair. We have 2 individuals up for nomination. We have Eric and Lisa Meiser. We need to do a roll call vote, so Amanda, who you're going to vote for, Eric or Lisa?
I would place my vote for Eric.
Okay, so we're now at a split vote of 5-5.
So,
So this-
well, I would say that, in the absence of a chair, obviously the vice chair would take over the meeting. And we do have an elected vice chair. We could take the vote again and see if the votes change. And if they don't, and we're with another split vote, I'm unsure how to proceed at that point.
it's kind of hard to have no chair and then have the chair make or break.
I believe it's a simple answer here. You follow the bylaws. It trumps Robert's rules. It's actually going to break the tie.
Split it.
It's pretty simple. If we start breaking bylaws you can just continue them right along.
Make Lisa again.
You're making more trouble for yourselves by breaking the bylaws now, and you're setting a precedent.
Well, we already set the precedent, Meredith. Three annual meetings ago,
Right.
so.
So past practice.
So it should continue?
Well, until we discuss it, I mean, you just can't all of a sudden in one meeting say, oh, it's against the bylaws, let's get rid of them, when we had a meeting and discussed it and decided that we weren't going to do it anymore just because the bylaws were not changed does not. We need a meeting on the bylaws, but that's not something we're going to get over tonight. I'm sure it was just an oversight.
It was discussed at length,
I know it was, I was there.
so it wasn't an oversight.
Well, it's an oversight that we didn't change the bylaws.
Correct, when the last time this happened. I don't see why it's so difficult to share this position. I think it makes for a healthier board to rotate leadership.
The only thing I have to say is, because of what's going on, there's so much in motion, you could literally have a new chairman every single year.
Right.
That's the
Right,
point.
exactly, and it takes at least a year to get your feet underneath you and know what the hell you're doing, as any of us will know. So you could end up really in permanent flex as far as the chairman, and I believe that's why we broke away from that originally. No one wanted it. The ones that stood up and said they would take it were new. Yep, I'll give it a try, but you can't have a leader that is new to the system. As you all know, when you came in as new board members, it took you more than a year to get your feet underneath you and know the mechanics and how to go about things.
Yes, so are you implying that Eric is a new board member? He's been a chair.
I
for a
did
couple of
not,
years.
please do not put words in my mouth, because you know that's not going to go over well, Meredith.
Well, I'm trying to understand.
No, I'm trying to say it could happen every single year. You could end up with a new board member as chairman, and that's not a strong organization at that point.
Okay, but that's not the case here.
Well, I would say, no, let's open nominations again. Chris, you may end up with different people.
I withdraw my nomination, or my motion.
Okay, so we are going to vote again. I will open the floor up for nominations. Do we have any nominations for chairperson?
I nominate Lisa.
Okay, we have, Mike has nominated Lisa. Do we have any other nominations?
I'll nominate Eric.
You're going to
Okay.
anyways.
Meredith has nominated Eric.
3-2-2 or 3-3.
We will now do a roll call vote, including the two nominees. I'll go with as they appear on my list here. Lisa Heiser,
Lisa.
Lynette,
Lisa?
Mike,
Lisa.
Tina,
Lisa.
Amanda,
Eric?
Lance,
Eric?
Eric,
Eric.
okay, Meredith,
Eric.
Tim,
Lisa?
and Kristen.
I'm going to change my vote for Lisa so we can move on. I'm not in favor of going against bylaws, but we got to move on.
Okay, by a vote of 6-4, Lisa's been nominated as board chair. I now turn the meeting over to Lisa.
Okay, I'm not sure what the next piece is.
Well, I think
Oh, yeah, we
don't we have to
Nomination
Vice
for
chair.
nominate
vice
a
chair.
vice chair now?
Oh, it says VSB.
Right, but I think since
need a
in the
new
original,
Vice.
so that the vice chair should have been on there, but was not put on there. So
Oh,
we need to
I'm
nominate
sorry.
a vice chair.
I'll
Okay,
make a motion to have Eric vice chair.
are there any other nominations? All those in favor is Eric as vice chair, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the agenda, additions, deletions, changes to the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Oh,
Wait,
Mike makes a motion. Is there
Second.
an addition, deletion?
I would like to delete policy E3 from discussion tonight because it still has a blank in it, and I feel like any second read policy should be ready to be posted. I think all formatting should be completed and everything if we're gonna vote on a second read.
The tobacco one?
Yeah,
Lisa, Eric.
yeah.
I do believe it was kept that way, just out of consistency with all the other boards.
E3.
That's why it was kept that way, so all boards
But we're the
same.
last one, right?
Correct.
So
But I
we-
think
so
all
when it
boards have to
com-
look at, view the same document as same.
So
policy.
I think for, maybe in general, for all boards then, for the second reads, it should be ready to be posted. So that when it gets to our board, that way it'll be consistent.
Okay. So we'll move E3.
well, I'd leave it for discussion when we come to it.
Well, I mean, we're discussing the change to, changes to the agenda. I think it should stay in there. I mean, I understand what you're saying as far as these coming in as second reads, but, we're just talking about the name of the district. These aren't going to be posted online like this. These will be, before they are presented, they will be changed. So, if it's just clerical error or something like that, that could be rectified before it's actually changed, but, we're not, it's already been warned, and, that can be filled in.
So I'm not saying it has to be warned again.
No,
But-
exactly. And so when we actually go through to approve these policies tonight, or for the second reads, adopt them, and we can say, make a note that this should say, Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union, for example. And then moving forward, absolutely, make sure all these are formatted 100%, before they come for second reads. So.
I'm okay with that, but I think that if it's stated at the first read that that should happen, then by the time it comes back for the second read, I feel like it should be done. So maybe if you want to keep it in tonight and just make that correction, that's fine. I didn't think it made a big difference if we just put it off to the pile of policies we'll have next month, but.
Yeah, what'll happen is that, it's already been adopted by the board, so it'll just come back to the SU next month, so
Right,
why?
but then it would be done, and it
Yeah.
would be ready.
But, it's still the same it's still got to be filled in, because it's going to say, it's going to change for every district, so.
I understand
even
both
this
of you.
month-
I understand both sides. I just don't want to get tied up in this.
Yeah.
But it was mentioned that needed to be filled in. Everybody agreed. Now it's back again, but it's still not filled in. That's why second read, it should be ready to go, is what Tina's saying. I understand yours, I understand hers. We'll discuss it more, I'm sure, when we get to policies, but that's all. So tonight, you can't adopt it as is, because it's not correct, but you can adopt it with the understanding that this will be done.
Okay, well, I guess the discussion is to whether to keep it on the agenda or not.
Right,
I
that's
think we
the
should keep it on
question.
the
That's what I
agenda.
mean, we're going to discuss them later anyways,
Okay.
just like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So Mike's motion to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
Bless you.
General public comment. Is there anyone online that would like to speak to the board about an issue not on the agenda? We have no one here with us. Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of March 23rd. A motion would be in order.
Move to approve the minutes.
Are there any changes, deletions, additions?
I'd just like to make,
Uh,
go ahead.
This is Lance. I was just going to add under board reorganization for remaining members of the board. I know Mary Midigi is listed for IRA, but if we could add myself and Jeff Martin as rotating members representing IRA.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
On the minutes, there was just one little word on page 6. It's supposed to be simplify, and it was simply instead.
Okay, what paragraph is
It's
that?
on the second last paragraph, the third line.
Oh, I see. Okay. Did you have something, Mike?
Yeah, I just make a note that through the minutes, it's also noted that there was seconds. I think we voted as a board not to require seconds because we were voting under Robert's rules for small boards.
Okay,
So that could be in the future, not necessarily be there.
right.
I think it was there last time because Eric was acting as chair and he wanted the seconds. But I think that's why it was in there, but I don't think that we have to have them, depending on what happens at the...
It would be our
Well,
choice, right?
Right. The board minutes are for the board, and we get to decide what's in there and not in there. But if we're going to use the procedure of not having a second, then we don't need to have it noted, because that's an action
Well, it's a
item.
reflection of what happened, and that's what happened.
It is what happened, but it wasn't necessary.
Yeah. I know.
Okay, so going forward, with respect to that, I guess we could have spoken about that at the, well, all those in favor with the changes to the March 23rd minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. At Quarry Valley, after we had been here at the SU and discussed Robert's rules and discussed that we had adopted Robert's rules for small boards, we chose to follow that rule like Rutland Town and not require seconds going forward. We had discussed that at this board, that we should have a level of continuity going forward. So as we've just started, we'll just be having the motion and then ask for discussion and then vote. We won't be requiring a second. I think it's important that we discussed it at Quarry Valley, and it was discussed a little bit here, that we all follow the same procedure. Meredith? Is she talking?
Muted.
Yep, you're muted, Meredith.
I'm not in favor, I don't see that it's necessary that we all follow the same rules, but I also think I like the second because it leaves a little more control over the board meeting so that it doesn't get out of hand.
Okay, I don't think our board meetings have gotten out of hand, but once you have a motion, you have the ability for discussion prior to voting. And I think there was a pretty lengthy discussion at this board meeting, or at the last SU board meeting, about following Robert's rules for small boards, that's what we had adopted. And like I said, we discussed it at Quarry Valley, we chose to follow that. Rutland Town's following it. If Middletown doesn't want to follow it, they certainly can do as they wish. But I will be running the board, just requiring a motion and having discussion and then voting.
We already did that, when we had our meeting this month. But, you know, we presented it in a different manner, Robert's rules, and then also included the Robert's rules for small boards and committees. And, you know, and then discussed it as a board, because, you know, I'm not sure how many people are aware of that, you know, that rule. And, you know, because we do adopt these, we have adopted these rules for small boards, and we have for years. The fact that for years we continued to ask for seconds, and it doesn't change anything, but any change to that, yeah, we would have to adopt new rules, or at least, you know, change the rules for small boards that we have adopted. And I agree with Meredith that I've always thought that the second is important, but it's, it's not like it's going to hold up board meetings or anything like that, but I think that it's, I'm not going to argue over a second, so basically what I'm saying.
Meredith?
I think it can help to actually streamline the board meetings because motions can be made that aren't really appropriate for discussion or are perhaps only one viewpoint. And maybe the rest of the board is not interested in following that direction. So I really feel it's important to have a second.
Mike? This has become more of a discussion than I anticipated.
I understand what Meredith is saying, but the chair still has control over that, so the chair can move to have the motion voted on or decline it, so I don't think that's a problem.
Lynette?
I'm still trying to figure out what he said.
Oh, my.
So, I'm just saying that, to me personally, just being on as long as I have, I personally like a second, even though Rutland Town does not require one.
Right.
Only because you could have a rogue out there that makes a motion,
Sure.
and that's it, it's made. Whereas if you have to have a second, I mean, there are quite a few instances in my history of this where they don't get a second and it kills it.
Absolutely.
That part I really like.
Sure.
So that's the only, from my viewpoint, good thing about asking for a second. But I'm, like I said, Rutland Town does it without one. We haven't had a problem.
Right.
So,
I don't anticipate us having an issue. I don't feel like we have any rogue members, but who knows, after tonight, maybe we will. I'm not sure.
we're not there tonight yet.
So, all right, moving on. A motion would be in order to approve the warrants as presented. You receive your warrants via your GRCSU email, and questions should be directed to Lewis.
I make a motion we approve the warrants as they were warned.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Superintendents report.
Thank you. I will be brief since all the boards have heard majority of this at their local meetings. We do have a few additional updates. The AOE released the school snapshot to us this week for review, which means that within the next week or so that the snapshot will go public. Once it goes public, I'll be working with Lisa and with Al Grigorich in terms of preparing a presentation to present to the boards with regards to SBAC data over the past couple of years, particularly around COVID, as well as to the GRCSU. So our goal would be for the June board meeting, just because we don't know the timing of when that actually will be released. But with Wellsprings being May 4th, we know that to have a presentation ready to go, we want to make sure that all boards receive that during the same month out of fairness to everyone. So we will be looking to present that in June for all boards. Legislative updates, we're still waiting to hear on some final things. There obviously are some issues that will potentially have impacts on our boards. Obviously, we're looking at pupil weighting. We're looking to see what's going on with school lunches. I know there was a discussion around using some of the ed fund revenue to offset some of the cost for school lunches. So we're waiting some final details around that. But once we have that, I will be talking with Lewis about financial implications, and we'll be bringing that back to boards for discussion as well. There's also discussion around lead, PCB investigations. We did receive a schedule the other day. I have sent that out to all of the building administrators. That we will have some buildings who are scheduled or slated for testing this summer, and it goes all the way to the summer of 2024. There are windows in which we have to operate. The one thing we do have to do is, as an SU, with our window being this summer, that even if, let's say, a school is not being scheduled for testing until July of 2024, we still have, provided the state with all the information. So during this first window, we are going to ask building administrators and as well as our facilities directors to do a little work to get all the information necessary. The state has said that the testing will be paid for by the state. There is a lot of discussion in terms of funding around mitigation and remediation. So we're waiting to see with that. I know that the last legislative update that I took a look at, there were a couple bills that were presented that were trying to offset some of the costs, because I think that is a concern around just if a district finds one school, let alone multiple schools, and the cost of dealing with this and removal can be pretty exorbitant. It can be a hit, but so those are things we are keeping an eye on. They also, I did receive an email the other day from Secretary French that the state did a school-wide facilities up, kind of a view. With COVID, there wasn't a lot of in-building and facility. They sent out a survey to administrators and our facilities directors to get feedback. And I do believe, I think they kind of rank it like, from 0 to 100, but I believe it was like 70, majority of the schools in the state of Vermont are over 70%, which means they're basically at the end of their, or approaching the end of their lives in terms of like major, like HVAC, boiler systems, major facility upgrades. I think that was more of a concern in terms of just the cost that districts and the state will find in the next couple of years as building repairs need to be made. And so obviously, these are discussions that we boards need to be aware of, because it'll impact budgeting moving forward, and just as we look at that. But when we meet again in July to talk about budgeting, we'll have a much clearer understanding in terms of the impact of these potential pieces of legislation and what they will look like. So, but we'll keep you posted on that. So, and last is we are working with around end-of-year activities and graduation dates. We do know that the high school dates have been set; those were on the calendar last spring. Our elementary schools right now are confirming their dates. A lot of it was set around the last day of school for students. I know we are discussing a little bit later on tonight snow days, but so once we finalize that tonight, we will have more information being sent out to families around promotion ceremonies, graduation ceremonies, and end-of-year activities. So, okay.
And so when you talk about the facility, do we have for each of our individual schools information that can be sent to us so we can see, or districts, so we can see where our schools fall in that? Because when you say 70%, I just think like within our schools, the amount of work and what we've done for upkeep and upgrades. And the other thing I worry about or am concerned about with the state kind of making a sweeping statement like that is, it's going to be easy for them then to sweep in and say, we're going to close these 5 schools and we're going to build another union school here, because that's going to be less expensive than, repairing 5 other schools or 5 high schools or something like that. And to me, like hearing them say that, thinking about that they're still talking, about Act 46, about merger movements and things like that, I just feel like that could be a train ride that we're on.
Well, Lisa, regarding your first part, I think I viewed a slide deck that Dan French said was a 10-slide deck to basically have an overview. There's a lengthy report, which I haven't had a chance to kind of go through yet, but once I see that, and if it does break down, facility by facility, we will send that out to the boards, to review with their local meetings. I think the concern that you have expressed is the concern that superintendents across the state have shared, and I think I think boards is we have these lead testing. We're looking at facility studies. We're looking at even the impact school lunches may have as we continue to provide that for our families and what the cost could be to our, or the impact on our local budgets. I do think there are a lot of concerns around what that means for schools, and I think there are some honest discussions and that have to be had. But like I said, I don't know the states. I can't speak on behalf of the state, but I do know that other superintendents have said that they're afraid that if they have 2 or 3 schools have lead in them, and, they look at the cost, from a cost, perspective, it would make more sense to be shut down 2 of our schools and just put all of our money in, and those are decisions which they don't want to have to make because of lead testing. But I
Right.
think that's just kind of where we're at, and we're just trying to get a more clear understanding in terms of what the impacts of this will be, but
Now, some of our schools have had lead testing prior, correct?
there have been some, yes. I know that we've had building repairs in some of our facilities. They have found lead, like the caulk that's used,
Yeah.
and so therefore we've had to remove that. So it just it wouldn't surprise me that we'll have some, but like I said, it varies in terms of cost, in terms of how
Right.
minimal, like replacing a window and caulking around the window. That's something which a school, or, we could tip, but if it's something much more substantial than that, and I think I think everybody jumps right to the worst case scenario.
Sure.
In terms of what impact that would be in terms of school, and.
Well,
if
when
we
you
had to
think
shut
about
down
the
a
age of
school-
our schools,
Right.
you obviously jump to worst case scenario.
Right, I think you look at like what Burlington High School went through this year and how
Yeah.
they, had to relocate to the Macy's building, and then they changed the levels, and, so I think it's one that it does cause concern, but it's something which we are monitoring, trying to keep an eye on, so what the
Okay.
impacts will be.
All the testing for the lead testing, I think that was Act 77, if I remember correctly, all that should have been done by now. And wasn't there, cost for remediation included in that as well?
So testing will start this summer for,
PCB, right?
yep, PCB, yep.
Now, haven't some of our schools already gone through the PCB? Because I think Rutland Town was one of them.
So all the schools are up for another round of testing.
Another round, okay.
Right, so this is, so the state.
How many
is-
times you have to do that? If you pass the first time, you still have to go through it until they find it, or?
Fill it with Lysol.
Yeah, I think, well, I said, I think that's just part of this. When we saw these schedule, all of our SU schools were listed with varying dates, so.
Oh, my goodness.
And I can, in the next board report, or my superintendent report, I could place those dates.
Okay, I think that would be helpful, just so
Yeah.
we know. when that is.
Legislature knows how to spend our
Sure.
money.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
But like I said, when we sit down in July to have discussions, I think we'll have a more clear understanding in terms of what the impacts will be, 'cause,
So do you anticipate they're going to have results to us by July? Because that seems really fast for them.
Yeah, no.
Okay. I was going to say, that would be amazing for
Yeah,
them.
no, that ain't happening.
Okay.
I do think that's a concern for some schools who are in the first round. But like I said, some schools aren't doing anything until 2024.
Right.
And so by then, they may have a completely different funding solution, but those who are in the early stages, I think that's a concern, like,
Yeah.
what happens to those schools, or.
Well, they keep kind of, I don't know, slyly saying, maybe look at the surplus in the ed fund, and then they talk about PCB testing, like, in the same, paragraph, like maybe that money could somehow supplement it.
There is concern
But they've
about-
spent that money like a birthday kid, like 5
They've already,
times.
exactly, differing.
Yeah.
There is concern about the ed fund surplus. They said when we look at the school lunches, there have been discussions around utilizing some of the money to offset cost.
Yeah. Okay.
But they've already split it, and our budget's already based on that, so therefore.
My understanding is that the next year would be paid for, it'd be the following year, because, but.
All right. Any other
Bunch of crooks.
questions for Chris?
Yeah, they're a bunch of crooks.
Are you finished your report?
Yeah.
Oh, you had given, well, I wasn't sure, 'cause you had given us the board meeting schedule. In your part, and there were 3 dates that are over breaks or right around holidays. I didn't know if now is a good time to discuss if we wanted.
So, I think, yeah, if it's I think GRCSU, if there are conflicts, then we could discuss those.
Yeah, there's Thanksgiving Eve, there's one over winter break, and then there's one over February break.
Yeah, that if we want to take care of that now, that'd be great, as opposed to
Yeah,
doing it a month
that's what
or
I
two in
was
advance.
thinking.
Sure.
So I think the only problem with the December one is sometimes that gets a little, depending on where budgets are and things like that.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't care if we move it, but I just know sometimes we'll say, like, we're not going to meet in December if in November we have set the GRCSU budget, then sometimes we opt not to do that. So I don't know how other people feel about that, or if you want to set a date just in the off chance that we aren't as prepared, but we're starting much earlier this year, so we should be done by like
I think the
October.
November one can just be backed up maybe a week, if we could.
Sure.
And then not meet in December?
Well, I'm not saying that.
Well, we could back them up, and then if we don't meet, we
Yeah,
don't
let me
meet.
do, I was gonna say, we could look at the other two. The only reason I'd rather not have one in December unless necessary for budgeting, and February is if we don't have a GRCSU meeting, okay, then our GRCSU employees also get a chance to take a vacation.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of would rather not have any meeting, GRCSU meeting, in December, February. The November, I think we should just back it up a week, if we could.
Well, so why don't we just do this? Why don't we back them all up a week? And then if we choose not to meet December, February, in the prior month, we can
Yeah.
make that decision. Doesn't that seem reasonable?
I was just gonna say we should keep them on calendar somewhere
And then cancel them
and we
later.
can
Yeah.
decide.
And then cancel them,
Because you
yeah. So
never
if we
know,
could,
like,
So what are the
So
tentative dates?
November 30th for the November one?
So we just
Back
move
it up
them,
as- goes from-
up a Wednesday, so
And then
going from the
January
4th to the 3rd Wednesdays, right?
Where are we at now?
Oh, you
oh,
mean?
I said
move-
back them up.
I thought you meant to.
The other way.
The
Move
other-
it later.
Oh,
That's what I
So
thought you
instead of
meant.
November, what is it,
23rd, it'd be
23rd?
the 30th.
So-
okay.
Oh, that's
Makes no
forward.
difference to me.
I was backing them.
So you were
Going
going
backwards.
earlier, so the 17th
Right,
or
Okay.
whatever.
16th.
16th?
okay, say the 16th.
So February 16th, is that what you're doing?
November.
No,
November 16th,
Because I have a
okay.
DRB meeting.
We're not on the
Who's
same.
on first?
We're not on the same calendar.
Oh,
December,
really.
First.
Let's see what happens.
okay,
Is there-
and February,
15th
I'm sorry, what was the December one?
21st,
and February 15th.
and February 15th.
Okay.
So would someone like to make a motion
Not
to?
No,
Oh, no?
discussion.
Oh.
Sorry. So I guess first we have to find out if everybody can meet.
Those are so far out, if you can tell
I
me,
can tell you,
I'm gonna be, oh.
You
I
can't?
can.
He can, on
I
November.
have a standing meeting the third Wednesday.
That's why I was thinking.
That's
Okay.
so
to
either
the
make it
5th.
and then the first and third Thursdays. So if we can make it maybe a Tuesday instead of a Thursday or a Wednesday,
So what if we made it the last,
what month?
November, the last
November 30th.
Wednesday? What if we did that?
The last Wednesday would be the 30th?
30th?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
Okay.
work for me, but
Okay.
that's, so November 30th.
So does, just as a general rule,
The third
does
Wednesdays never works.
Does November 30th work for people?
Yes.
I mean, I'm just putting
Yeah.
it on my calendar.
Yes, good for me.
Okay, so moving to December, do you want,
That would be January 4th.
Oh, you're going the other way, okay.
Well, we have to because the third Wednesday doesn't work for you.
well, what about the second Wednesday? Or do you have a,
No.
do you have a
Cold
meet?
Springs is the
That'll
first
be
Wednesday.
too
Oh,
close.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
to
So
the-
you said what, January what?
January 4th,
So we're gonna have December's meeting January 4th.
after the
We could do the
holiday.
14th,
December 14th?
which is a Wednesday, yes.
Okay.
The
All right.
4th isn't a Wednesday?
Yeah, that's okay, because that's your only second.
What?
Yeah.
December 14th?
14th is.
14th?
Yep.
So that's,
Even
Okay.
though we're meeting November 30th, you want to go that
Well,
closely?
if December meeting is gonna be about budget,
I mean, that's what we're gonna
That's, I
talk
think,
about
what matters.
primarily that
Be
time of year.
specific.
is-
Okay.
All right, so December
have it anyway,
14th
right?
seem like a keeper for
Sure.
people?
Yep.
Kristen, Tim, Lane?
Yeah, just, can we make sure that Louis can be here too?
Well, he can join us, it just, he might be like in a car cruising down.
If he
you know.
wants the warrant signed, he'll be here.
Yeah,
He was here tonight. Oh, yeah, he's still up.
okay, in February, was the 15th a deal breaker, or did that work?
That's a deal breaker.
Okay, so February, what are we looking at?
might as well go the one before
The
that.
8th,
Okay,
February 8th.
February 8th.
Is that okay
Even-
with you?
Even
Chris?
though we're meeting the 25th.
Yes,
yeah, February's fine.
okay.
Okay, so November, so we're gonna change GRCSU meetings for November, December, and February to November 30 December 14th, and February 8th. Would someone like to make that a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike. Is there any other discussion about those dates?
I'll third it.
And maybe if Kristen could just put that in the next, or redo the calendar maybe and send it out just for that, so people have that.
And online.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Assistant Superintendent's Report, Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. You should have gotten my written report. And really with the school break week, I don't have a whole lot more to add than that, other than just to thank the staff members who are both our curriculum review team members and our PLC members for the curriculum work that they've been doing. Our curriculum review team has been able to review math, ELA, and science curriculum priority indicators, and has provided feedback already to the math group, which they have started working with in their PLCs and responding to in making updates to their curriculum documents. So great pieces. And then on the next GRCSU-wide PLC will have feedback to everyone with the exception of PE and health, and we'll follow up with them in a separate meeting after that. So great conversations, great work going on, a lot of conversation about rigor and making sure that we are setting high, consistent expectations for students across our schools, which is exciting to get to talk to teachers about that and how we ensure that that happens for everyone. So big thank you to all of them. And also just today I had this really great meeting at West Rutland, and wanted to say thank you to Jenna Abtiel and Julie Irish and Kim Stedman and Alina Wehoff. We have been looking at this part of the IEP requirements, which are new requirements from the state as part of the proficiency-based system around developing access plans to proficiency-based graduation requirements for students on IEPs. And Jenna and Julie were willing to model that process for us so that we could get a really true hands-on in-depth understanding of exactly what it takes to do that work with a partnership of a gen ed teacher and a case manager or special educator, to go through that process so that we could brainstorm and outline some of the tools and resources and trainings that we're going to need to provide to staff so that they can do that work more easily, more in a more streamlined fashion, and with more quality for everyone. So I just am so grateful to staff who are willing to engage in that work actively and have these great conversations about how we make it better for all of the students in the GRCSU, how we support all of our teachers, and how we advance the work and move it forward. I feel like we've been doing pandemic response for so long, and maybe this is my post-COVID moment or getting out of COVID moment, but it is so nice to just talk to teachers and staff about teaching and learning and really have the capacity to focus on that and to look to the future. So I'm on a little enthusiastic high this evening that I have to gush about a little bit with you guys. It feels really good.
That's great. That's good to hear. It's exciting. It's good to hear positive things and not just like, COVID, we're gonna.
I'm talking about lead testing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Chris is always a downer, but that's all right. Any questions for Lisa? All right, thank you.
I had
I'm
I
sorry.
had a question. On the bottom of other there, where it says the Title IX appellate decision maker.
Yeah.
So could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
There were new Title IX requirements put into place 2 years ago now, is that correct? And so there were some trainings rolled out by the state and by our insurance company, Visbit, I think, and a variety of different pieces, but
if you're familiar with HHB and the HHB, how the policy and procedure goes together, and how the procedure for an HHB, hazing, harassment, and bullying investigation is outlined by law. It's part of the law. And so we adopt both the policy and procedure together, which is very unusual for policies. Usually policy and procedure are separate. The Title IX is exactly the same. We've adopted the policy and procedure together because the procedure is mandated by law. So what's starting to happen is we've now had a few investigations begin in Title IX, and they're our very first ever using this new policy and procedure. So all of our principals are learning this new policy, and honestly, our lawyers are learning this new policy as they go through it with us, because there have not been very many investigations under this new Title IX procedure that have happened to date. So
What has the outcome of that been? We have been not doing it well, we are going to do it really well?
It's just new, so.
Well, yeah, I know
we're
new,
implementing it.
but, I mean, I know nationwide, never more, I'm not just talking about our SU.
Yeah.
The bullying has increased, of course, and due to COVID and homeschooling and et cetera. I'm just wondering if this has anything to do with our upcoming year and curriculum, and how maybe our schools in general are going to really crack down on it?
Well, when you have a new standard or threshold of investigation, usually what you do, you see an uptick at first, because it's not that it wasn't happening well before, it's just being identified differently. So things that would have been referred for student handbook discipline previously, or for an HHB investigation previously, they would have been dealt with under a different process. And now they're dealt with under this process, if that makes sense. Does that answer the question you were asking?
Yes, it does in a way, no.
So I think you're, as we look at, disciplinary incidences, we're looking at root causes, and I think there are a variety of factors. And I think that what we're seeing, played out in other schools, it's played out in some of our schools as well. I think so. There are concerns that we have from a SU standpoint, just about what's going on in our world, and how, what sort of impact that'll have upon our school settings, our classroom settings, and what it is, how we approach things. And I think it's something which we are hyper aware of and working with their administrators and teachers on as well. And I think as we move forward, I think, just there are just a lot of things we have to just be aware of. And I think but when we look at bullying or harassment or a Title IX issue, as Lisa said, that threshold's been expanded, been changed, and so therefore it opens up to a larger category sometimes for us. And so, but I think to identify as one root cause would be very difficult. I think there are
You wouldn't be able to know, but...
Right, but I think there are a variety of factors, but I think it's what we see in our society. I think we've been able to think that that's not going to have a trickle down or have an impact in our schools. I think that's what we're trying to work with, is the conversations that are being had, and whether it be at the store or at home, are being had here, and how do we work through that and deal with our kids in a respectful, sensitive manner as we navigate that. So,
I don't know, I do see it as part of the portrait of a graduate, because it's all in empathy and understanding, and it all really boils down to one pot. So I'm just wondering if we had any plans on how we're going to address it. I mean, keeping our eyes open to it at school should be always anyways.
Right. Yep.
But I don't think we're getting the message to the students unless they're the ones that are misbehaving. So I didn't know if there was a plan that you were looking at, curriculum-wise or school-based, that we may institute in our schools starting next year.
So obviously, one, we want to hold students accountable
Right.
for their actions. I mean, I think there's always this misnomer that students get a free pass. No, it's like students are going to be held accountable in the classroom school. That's important, for their actions as part of learning, where that line is and things along those lines. as we talk about the recovery plan and things along those lines, there are plans in place to help us address this. I think that's where, when we look at data, so at the end of the year, when we look at achievement data, we look at our math scores, our reading scores, we'll also look at disciplinary, incidences and, frequencies. We look at time of day, we look at the nature of them, and so we build out plans to best support students, best supports staff, best support schools, and, moving forward with this, so.
I guess what I'm looking for is more, instead of being reactive, which we are now, okay, something happened, we got to do something, I'd rather be proactive if there's a way to get that message to the kiddos before they start. Just because you get away with this crap at home, you're in a different environment. You're in school.
Wasn't that kind of what we're doing with SEL and all that, trying to incorporate
but I
that
didn't
within the classroom and within every kind of course?
Right.
I think it might be helpful, maybe, like, since, as you said, it's broadened it, so there could be more in that maybe, and I'm sure it'll happen by district, but maybe like quarterly at the SU meetings, we could just, you could just provide us if you've seen an uptick in the numbers, and that way it would allow us to know, if it's based in one district, maybe that district needs to be looking to see staffing wise, but if we see it across the SU, maybe that's a staffing issue we need to look at, here to see how we can better support or address it.
Right.
But, I think we need to see, and like you said, the numbers are gonna jump immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's, 10 foot
They were
wide.
0 before.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, so, but that might be helpful just as a,
Yep, no.
yeah.
Just to go back to Eric's original question.
Yeah, thank you.
So, within a Title IX investigation, again, by procedure, there are multiple roles that are required for you to have. And I think it's intended to separate and keep objective who is collecting information and who is making decisions to try to eliminate personal relationships from the process. And so the roles are very clearly delineated. You have an investigator. That investigator sends you have a Title IX coordinator, which is a building-based person who handles all the correspondence and referrals and things like that. But then you have an investigator who does all the investigating. And then you have a decision maker who is a separate person who reviews all of the investigation information in writing and makes a decision in the situation based on that. And then you have an appeal decision maker, which I have been so gratefully assigned a role as for this process, who, if there is an appeal, if a party is dissatisfied with the outcome of the original investigation, they have the right to appeal. And so then the appeal decision maker, by procedure, has to review everything up to that point and make a determination about whether or not an appeal should be allowed to move forward based on that information. And I'm sure there's rules after that too. But that's as far as we've gotten in the procedure so far. So I have a brand new hat that I'm learning how to wear.
Mediator.
As are all of our principals. We've had 3 principals so far who have been involved in different roles in this investigation. All of them have had to learn how to navigate a very explicit, detailed, time-bound legal procedure, checking every single box as they go along the way in close consultation with our legal team. So it's quite a process. Many of the superintendents I know have been talking about it a lot, and often there are really good intentions about how we take care of children by our legislative bodies, and they want to do the right thing, but the outcome is something that places a significant additional burden on the schools that sometimes was not really anticipated, I think, in the planning, and we're seeing that. So there is a lot of conversation across the state about the burden that this is putting on districts. It's an incredibly time-intensive process, and days and days and days of people just doing this work and not anything else with each investigation. So it's very significant.
Yeah, I've kind of picked up on some of that. So this appellate decision maker, is this like a program or something you're developing, or is this like an outside program?
No, this is a role.
Oh, it's a role, okay.
Within the investigation.
Okay,
And
I get
the
it now.
law, the procedure outlines exactly what actions I need to take in that role, and the same for all the other roles that are part of the investigation. It's a checklist, basically, of exactly what steps you need to follow and the timeline that you need to follow them with, all of it in consultation with
Okay.
legal.
And depending on the case, the situation, it could be myself, it could be, Christine Cam, someone else serving as that. And I think what Lisa had said about the burden, I think this goes back to what we were saying, like, it was well-intended, this piece of legislation. I understand the spirit of this.
Absolutely.
But the resources that are available to, say, a school, our school, say in Chittenden County, are much different than a school available to, one of our schools. If we pull a building administrator to handle this or do it, then a lot of other things are being taken off the table. Because it's very time consuming, it's very exhaustive, it's very intensive, and we don't have the resource to have someone where we can just designate it as you are, person, or our Title IX investigator, where other districts will employ someone, that'll be one of their roles. Our building administrators will be pulled from one school to assist with another one, so and when we went through the training, the training was very exhaustive and intensive. They just said it was in total, on average, 80 hours through this whole process, and just the amount of paperwork and documentation.
How many do we think were just a guessing point? How many times do we have to do this?
We don't know.
I mean, if it ends up, and we'll find out in a year, I guess, but, I mean, it may behoove us to get an investigator if this becomes a huge thing.
But I think that's something which I think we look at the quarterly, just where we
Right.
can look at the impact that this may be having. It's something which we want to explore, maybe a joint role or something along those lines. But, yeah. And it really fluctuates. I go back to New Jersey. There was Tyler Clemente, an individual at Rutgers who, committed suicide, and so there was a piece of legislation that came out that New Jersey had a very, very stringent harassment, intimidation, bullying piece, but schools, the minute if someone called and say my child's being bullied, then it triggered. You had to go through the process. Did not matter. So if someone came in, and we had to really work with our staff, our teachers, that to avoid certain words we can use, because the minute a word is used, a determination was made, and so it kicked this whole process into gear. And I think with this as well, I think there are certain times where we will have to go through this process and go all the way through, and even though we may know that it may not meet that definition, we still will have to go through that just to complete the process and make that determination. So
Yeah, I think it's great. If anything, that will, help speed up the process, and alleviate the amount of work that principals are doing and other administration, and then the cost. I think there's an associated cost with legal fees.
Every time we pick up the phone.
Okay.
So,
all right.
and so what we're doing is we're building capacity, that we are building experts. So therefore, like administrators who are going through and working, because this is there are a lot of legal loopholes and red tape that you have to go through, and so as we're working step by step with the attorney. And the attorney's office we're working through is, with, Lynn and Lynn, Heather and Pietro Lynn, who have been presenting to the state around this. So we are getting the best possible advice and walking us through every single step and making sure that we are doing everything by the book, but we're also doing building capacity. So we have building administrators now who feel more comfortable, who then, we talked about this during the summer admin retreat, we'll have some of these administrators do some turnkey training and walk us through the various steps. So therefore, the next time we go through it, we may not need to be as dependent upon this legal as we were in our initial rounds. But like I said, we just felt more comfortable because of checking off all the boxes, as opposed to blundering through it, because I said there's a lot there.
Oh, yeah.
Really through.
I encourage everyone to read our Title IX policy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you. Contract,
Krista Ross had her hand up.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I wanted to say, I didn't actually see in my digital packet your report, Lisa Madison, so maybe it's just me and I missed it, I've been searching around, so anyway, I don't wanna miss that, 'cause
It was in the extra
obviously you're
email
doing a
that
lot of good stuff, so
Christine sent
if
out.
somebody could just email that to me, that would be helpful, thanks.
I think it's in,
It came out just today, or
Oh,
it was sent in a second mail.
Sent an email, okay, I'll go back and look, I just didn't see that, but it could've been because I was in another.
Yeah, there were like 3 or 4 things she sent out this afternoon
This afternoon, okay.
from Christine.
Yes.
or yesterday, I don't remember.
Well, I thought it was today. All right, moving on to contract recommendations. The first is for FY23 non-union rates. Are there any questions about the contracts as presented?
Lisa, do we want to hold off on this till maybe after an executive session? Because there are a few items in here that,
Okay. Do you want to do that with all contracts?
I think we can just do the non-ab and non-union. We can approve others. But there are just a couple items in here that I know that
Okay.
I want to discuss.
So professional, new hires, teacher CBA contracts.
Yes.
All right, so we'll move on to the second handout, professional staff, new hires, and teacher CBA contracts for FY23.
I just had a question that would probably need to be for executive session
Okay,
as well.
so we'll put that to side also.
On this list?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right. So we'll try resignations.
No, you can't.
can't really argue about those.
So, we have 6 resignations and 1 non-renewal. Are there any questions there? Hearing none, a motion would be in order to approve the resignations and non-renewals as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nick?
Motion passes unanimously. You also have the handout for open positions throughout the SU in your packet for information only. And we'll move on to finance with Lewis.
Lisa, real quick, Lisa, do we want to read out the names of resignation?
Oh, would they like those read? That's why I say as presented. The resignations are Kimberly Stedman, Jamie Giebolt, Courtney Donovan, Amanda Crowningshield, Diane Johnson, and Contessa Perry. All right, Lewis, you're up.
And before
Sure.
Lewis goes, I just had a quick question about, I know it's just informational, but on page 6, the GRCSU Coordinator for Student Services, is it still the same? Because it says that the Coordinator of Student Services under the supervision of the Director of Student Services and the Assistant Director of Student Services. I didn't know if that was still.
Oh, because we hired Tiffany?
Yeah, because we don't have
We do not have an assistant.
an assistant, so
Yeah.
I didn't know if that should be,
Right.
like, work with the other coordinator or something.
I don't think we have anyone currently that,
Right, we don't
We
currently have.
we do have a coordinator though,
We do-
right?
Correct, but
Yeah.
we do not have an assistant
Assist-
director.
Correct, that's why I was
or-
wondering if it should be amended. I don't, on the job description or something. I don't know. Just
Well,
it's-
right, I think job description in itself reads correctly. I think was when we had, when Kim, resigned, we, looked at, what sort of structure we'd be moving forward through next year. So, I think, Bill, I don't know if Bill's on the call, but I think the discussion was, do we replace the assistant or do we go with two coordinators? And so we could just, if we would repost or change that job description to read that, but the.
it was correct when we were.
Because
when
it
we
was
were
clear,
when
like,
we
if
did it, yeah.
in a year's time, we may have a
Right.
director, an assistant director, and then a coordinator, which that structure might be back to.
So it might be, okay, I see what you're saying.
So,
Makes sense, thank you.
and then, Lisa, the request we made, about non-renewal,
Oh,
maybe you read there.
William Jalbert is the non-renewal. So all the names are typed and put into the minutes. All right, Louis, you're really up this time.
Good evening, everyone. So I have 2 items for tonight's agenda. The first is looking at the financials. So there is an updated forecast in the packet, which takes our current budget and current expenses and tries to forecast out how we think we're going to end the year. I'm currently estimating that we're going to end the year with a surplus of approximately $58,000. And in my report, I list some of those reasons, but let's just go through them briefly. So the main reason is grant and direct revenue. We have received a lot of federal grants this year, including ESSER and some other ones as well. And when we receive federal grants, we're allowed to take a portion of that grant as an indirect to cover administrative costs, such as the payroll, bookkeeping, running account payable, all of the work that gets done behind the scenes at central office to manage those grants. And so that goes in as a revenue in the general fund. Because we can't put those types of expenses in the grant, you pull those out of the grant as an indirect. So right now, we did have, according to the forecast, we had $40,000 in miscellaneous revenue budgeted, but right now I'm estimating about $120,000 in miscellaneous revenue due to that increase in indirect revenue. The second item is we did have a business office vacancy, which is going to result in approximately $20,000 in savings this year. It's been open for about 2 months. We're looking to fill it hopefully by the beginning of June. And then just the smaller items, just a smaller miscellaneous savings on many different lines, such as supplies, dues and fees, less travel due to remote meetings, and those type of things. In addition to the savings that I just listed, just some notes for the future. We are looking to not fill a budgeted position in the business office for next year, which should result in about $32,000 in savings. That will be $32,000 savings for next year, FY23, but also when we look at FY24 budget, taking that position out, that will be savings for FY24.
Excuse me. Thank you.
On top of that, one of the business office staff has been working with the Medicaid clerk to transition some of her work and helping her. She's been helping with her about 10 hours a week for most of this year, and that's going to continue into next year and increase as she's looking to get closer to retirement and hopefully do a smooth transition while she cross-trains. And hopefully we can absorb a lot of that work. We're not really sure what the outlook will look like when she gets retired, but I'll keep you updated as we move forward. And then the last item is with our ESSER grants, we have not taken any indirect revenue out of our ESSER 2 grant. Based on what I think we're going to spend in ESSER 2 for this year, we will have earned about $100,000 in indirects. As of June 30th, that is just an estimate. I don't plan on using any of that this year. We can carry that forward into next year, which should help when we're looking at FY23 and FY24 budgets at the SU level. Just some upcoming items in May at the local budget, the local boards will be looking at reviewing tax anticipation notes, and we're looking to get approval on those. And then at the next May GRCSU meeting, we'll have the food service renewal for the summer of next year. That'll be the last year in our contract. After that, we have to go out to bid. Any questions on that before I move on to the ESSER report?
Mike?
How's the vans doing?
The vans are still on order. No update on that.
All right, looks good. On to ESSER.
Okay. So in the packet was 3 ESSER reports, one for ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. I'll go through each of them. So the first one, ESSER 1, that's the first grant that we received. We started spending that that would have been January 2021. And that total grant amount was $446,000. To date, we've spent $433,000 of that. The plan is to have this grant fully spent and closed out by the end of this fiscal year, so June 30th of 2022. And I've listed some of the items, well, all of the items, but I've broken down the categories as to how that money was budgeted and how it was spent, and then a description of some of, a further description of some of those items. Just briefly, I mean, ESSER 1 was a continuation of the CRF grants, was as far as purpose-wise. We used it mostly for social distancing, sanitation, local jobs, just keeping our buildings open during COVID time and as a result of COVID. Air filters, air purifiers, stuff like that. So that was really the intent on that grant, was really to keep our buildings open and try to do business as usual. The next grant is ESSER 2. That one we just started spending on this past summer. First thing we used it for was the summer enrichment programs. With ESSER 2, the shift really changes more from keeping our buildings open to recovery and not using it so much on mitigation measures, but recovering from COVID as far as, and looking at instruction and where we fell behind and where we need to catch up. So we use it on a number of things, with local subs, again, keeping our, make sure that we can fill our vacancies in the building and still provide instruction on a daily basis. Where we have an SEL coordinator, a literacy coordinator, a data manager, all positions that were approved by the SU board, positions that were felt were needed to really recover from the results of COVID. So that grant was $1.6 million. As of, let's see, we currently on page 2 of that report, the forecast is that we will use almost 1.2 million of that grant this year, leaving about $441,000 to use for next year and future years. And then the last grant, ESSER 3, that's the really big one. That one we have not started using yet. This is what we consider the ARP money. A lot more rules and red tape on this spending. We plan on using it for FY 23, 24, and 25. It ends in September 2025. So on page 4 of my report, you can see all the different areas, which are mostly a continuation of ESSER 2, plus some additional positions that the board has approved either during the budgeting process or more recently. So I've listed what the FY23 estimated cost would be, the FY24 estimated cost, and the FY25 estimated cost. That total grant is $3.5 million. So we don't have it all accounted for. Actually we do. We have it all accounted for, but we do have some wiggle room in there. If other priorities come up, we can shift money as needed by just doing an amendment. I'm sorry, the total grant amount was 3.6 million, not 3.5. Any questions on that?
Does the ESSER 2 money have to be spent by a specified date, or do we have that also until September 25?
I believe ESSER 2 is until September 30th of 2024.
Okay, thank you.
So, on the supply section of the ESSER 2, it's like $7,000 spent out of 104. Is that a particular reason, like hasn't been categorized yet, or is it certain supplies that are on back order, or can you elaborate on that?
So this is an instructional supply. This is meant for, it's to benefit all buildings. It's to provide manipulatives, programming, software, any type of supplies that the buildings need to help further education. I will defer to Lisa a little bit to see, and she can maybe provide more information. That's related to instruction.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about, a little bit about this in our recovery plan, but, report later on in the meeting agenda, but, some of the intention behind this supply line is to have funding available for, as our data shows needs, either created or exacerbated by the pandemic. And we are looking at resources and materials for schools, and finding that they are either inadequate, they are dated, not all of our schools have access to them, so on and so forth. We're able to tap into that line item. So some of those pieces are works in progress that I'll talk a little bit more about when I get to the recovery plan report tonight.
So does this mean like if, say a school wanted to send someone, like a teacher to Orton Gillum or something like that, would that incorporate?
Sorry,
what-
I can't hear you. There's a bunch of talking going on.
If a teacher, if a building administrator wanted to send someone to like that, because I think you have to send someone in your building to be, could that come from that line item, or is it only for manipulatives and things like that? Could it be used for training?
Louis can talk more about the coding, but there are different budget codes for
Okay.
those pieces. But as he said, we're able to shift funding also by making a grant amendment. So if there is a great training opportunity for intensive intervention, and
Yeah.
we've got folks that we want to send, and we don't have a budget code with funding available in it for professional development, we can submit an amendment and shift some of that funding over into that area. So
And we
there's-
can use it for general or special ed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's.
And do building administrators all have that information? They're all aware of that?
They're all part of our planning and
Okay.
work activities for what we're trying to do, so any planning that we're doing.
So this is a great opportunity to be taking advantage of that?
It's a great opportunity.
To have more trained within your
Yeah.
building? Okay.
Yeah.
Questions? Did you have anything else for us, Louis?
That's all I have for now.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to old business and the recovery plan. Lisa?
Perfect transition. So you should also have a written update on this. I apologize if there was confusion. I had sent a March report to Christine a while back, but it had not been included in last month's packet, so I had sent her an April one, and she's like, well, I already sent out the March one. And I said, oh, sorry. Well, they're not much different, so it doesn't really matter which version you read. We just updated a couple things from March to April, but one of the things that I had spoken about with the executive committee members a few months ago was trying to have a written recovery plan report go out every month with my report, so that even on months where we're really busy and we don't have time to talk about it, that board members still have access to ongoing information about the activities that are being undertaken as a result of our recovery plan efforts. So I'm not going to read through this or go through intensive detail here tonight, but to give you kind of the big picture, the Agency of Education required a recovery plan for this school year. There are 3 phases to that recovery plan. Phase 1 was the needs assessment, which we conducted last spring, where we were required to look at data across our supervisory union, establish clear problems of practice or areas of concern, and goals and strategies that we believed would address those areas of concern. And we had to make a plan for how we were going to accomplish that, and some other, details included in the plan. And then phase 2 was implementation and ongoing monitoring. And so that's what we've been engaged in all year long since July 1st, ongoing. And so we have 3 sub-task forces that work underneath and in coordination with the recovery team. And those are in the 3 areas that we were required to have for the state plan, which is academic success, engagement and truancy, and social emotional learning, mental health and well-being. And so those task forces are meeting on a monthly basis at the least, and working on the strategies that were outlined in their sections of the plan last year. And then the recovery team meets on a monthly basis, and we monitor and report out on the progress that those task forces are making. We can problem solve with them, connect them to resources, groups think something, whatever it is that they need to continue to advance that work. And then we also, partway through the year, added a monthly meeting with all of our principals, where they are also getting updates on our recovery plan work, because we realized in the fall that not all of our principals serve on the recovery team, and so the folks who were working on it knew all the details and what was going on, but the folks who were not part of that team didn't, and they were missing pieces of the big picture and the work that we're trying to accomplish together. So we added those communication meetings to try and make sure that everybody has access to the information about what's going on, and that principals can help us to support those initiatives and give feedback on those initiatives. Each of those task forces is composed of many members of the school community, many stakeholders. Some of them were recommended by the Agency of Education, for whom we needed to have. Our recovery team has composition that was required by the Agency of Education, but if you've got all of the groups have, a few admins, and depending on the kind of group, they might have interventionists, guidance counselors, some teachers, behaviorists, folks in other roles. Our recovery team coordinators and data manager all sit on those as well. And just a variety of people who help to inform and support that work and give feedback from multiple perspectives, so that across schools, across districts, really trying to have a representative conversation where we can try and meet everyone's needs with the activities that we're doing. So what we're working on right now is phase 3, and that will be from now till June 30th. And that's the evaluation, assessment, reflection, and planning. And so each of our task forces is going through all of the initial goals and strategies that they outlined, the progress that has been made year to date, and the outcomes. So if we have new data available and or any kind of next steps that have been accomplished, they're going in and now they're updating their goals, and they're saying, we did this, we tried this strategy, here was the outcome. Either it was effective, it wasn't effective, it was partially effective, whatever the case may be, and then they're recommending, are we going to tweak it or adjust it? Are we going to stop it and try a new strategy? Are we going to expand the strategy that we were using because we're finding early success and we want to deepen that work and make sure that it gets across to everybody? So they're having those conversations right now. By the 30th of June, we have to submit our phase 3 of our recovery plan to the state, which is that outline of everything that we've accomplished this year and what our new goals and strategies will be for the upcoming school year. So that's just kind of the big picture of the process and where we're at. The specific activities for each task force are listed within this written report, both what they've been working on recently and what's coming up next. And when the recovery team, the big picture recovery team meets, we have a giant spreadsheet. So when we meet, we update every month, pretty much every month, updates on progress for the whole team to be able to review and see. So we're visually and collectively tracking kind of an accountability of is that moving forward? Is that work moving forward? Are we helping to support that work and get things done? So it's been a great process. Again, a lot of hard work and effort by many people on each of those teams, trying to frame supports for students, really, and teachers as we try to increase student learning and increase the capacity of our district in many ways to sustain this after this initial burst of funding and resources are gone. And a lot of our activities are focused on that. It's building the capacity, it's building systems that work, procedures that work, professional development for teachers to increase their skill capacity, making sure that everybody, all of our schools have access to equitable resources that are high quality, evidence-based, and going to really support an acceleration of student learning to try to close the gap from this pandemic. So,
is there a summary sheet on that state submission that maybe the board could see, or is it easy to get a printout of the spreadsheet, just so the board could kind of see what the progress is and what that looks like?
I've summarized all of it here in writing. Okay. So, which is easier, I think, to understand. The spreadsheet has a lot of acronyms and weird shorthand. Okay. It's just our work. But I took everything from it to put into this report. All right. As an update, we also have a recovery plan website. So there's an ESSER and ESSER reopening recovery plan website page. And so the current copy of the recovery plan is available on the website. When we update it for phase 3, it will also be updated on the website, and the narrative description of all of the investments and strategies that we put into the ARP ESSER 3 grant application that Louis was speaking about, that is also on the website, so people can see exactly, what we looked at and reviewed in developing those investments and how we plan to spend that funding. That document that's on the website also includes a summary of how we've spent past funding, all in one place, which I think is really nice, because as you heard from Louis talking today, there's so many different funding streams that have come out from COVID that it is really nice to have it all just summarized in one place, so you can see what's come in and what we've been investing in and what's still left to invest.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to have that to be able to just kind of look over.
Yep. It's
a lot to digest.
It is. It's a lot of really busy people working really hard this year trying to meet student needs, so.
All right, any questions for Lisa on the recovery plan?
I just wanted to know, on your report that you gave us, it says that the recovery plan phase 3 is due June 1st, 2022?
Maybe it's due June 1st and I misspoke today.
Okay.
Probably took that right off the document. One of those 2 dates. I'll double check for you for next month's report.
It's in June.
Whatever day it's due, it will be done by that day.
I just wanted to make sure that.
1st or July 1st?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business, snow day discussion. Chris, I'm going to let you take that.
Sure. So we have had 2 snow days this year. As part of this, we bring it to the board for discussion about whether or not the board would wish to waive these 2 snow days. Our current last student day right now is Friday, June 17th. With these 2 snow days, students would then be expected to come back on Monday the 20th and Tuesday the 21st. And so what's up for discussion is whether or not the board would be willing to consider waiving these 2 student days, but also the discussion then about staff days, if the board would waive these days for staff, or if they would like the staff to work those 2 additional days. There is a side letter that I would need to work with the association on, because the contract, the master agreement does state that 186 days, which there would be no fewer than 180 student days, which this would drop the student days down to 178 by waiving those days. So it just would bring it just for discussion to see what the board would like to do with these 2 snow days, and how we proceed.
Discussion?
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the 2 snow days, actually for the students and teachers.
Okay, discussion?
So so with with that motion, my recommendation would be that, because I think as we look at the support staff, that when students are not in session, that support staff would lose 2 days of pay, that I would recommend that we've already have it budgeted that we would pay the support staff for those 2 days as well. Because the teacher would be paid for those 2 days that we waived, that we'd also do the same for the support staff on those 2 days.
No, I meant everybody.
Yeah, I just was right, because I think by waiving them, I just want to clarify for everyone that would be my recommendation, that the support staff would not lose 2 days of pay.
Right.
So,
Just to be discussed.
So I said for staff, for students and staff.
okay,
which would
discussion.
include them all.
Eric?
Yeah. I don't know, I would be more inclined to, waive the days for students, and not for staff, and I don't know, I think that time could be used in some manner for preparation, that's just my thought. And then, we wouldn't have to do a side letter too, so.
No, we have
Well,
to,
we'd still have to do a side letter, because it would drop student days below
Our student days
180.
would drop to 178, and the master agreement says that 186 work days with no fewer than 180 student days.
So if you're waiving the 2 teacher staff days, are you saying that the 17th is their last day for this year? Because that would cut them, if their contract says
So if we waived the days for staff as well, that would reduce the number of working days from 186 to 184.
So they would still have the additional 2 days.
And
But-
we would pay all staff for the 2 days.
And if we didn't waive the staff days, would we have professional development?
I think what we would do is we'd be doing building-based work with staff, like, admins would work with their teachers and
Right,
whether it be work on grade level teams, getting things, buttoning up their classrooms, getting things ready to go for the following year. There would not be SU-wide
okay.
professional development or district-wide professional development, we'd be building-based. That's what we envision.
And it would be for support staff as well? It could be for
So
support.
what we would do is if the board would decide not to waive for staff, we would provide support staff with the option, if they would like to work on those 2 days, we'd have, things for them to do, but it would be optional for them.
Okay.
We'll keep it with us.
Okay, let me split my motion then.
Well, we're still, we're
yeah.
having discussion, so you'd have to take the
yeah.
motion off the floor, but that's okay, you can leave the motion while we have
Okay,
discussion.
I'll leave it for now.
So we can just,
I misunderstood. I thought by doing both, we would get out of that side agreement, wouldn't have
Oh.
the grievance type thing is what I was thinking.
Uh-huh.
So,
right, Tina?
I was just curious from Lisa and Chris's standpoint, teacher burnout, do you feel like it would be helpful for them to have a couple extra days, building-based PD, or do you think, if the kids aren't there anyway, if it would be not as worthwhile right now with the year that we've had?
I think it depends on the teacher. I didn't say that where there are some teachers who would welcome some days to work on a variety of things, while there's who are ready for the end of the year. And I think that's one. So it's real difficult to paint them all with one brush. I think that's just typical of any year. I think at the end. So I do know that in other districts I've worked at in other states where, and I've said this to this, that this is one of the first places where the student days were the same day as the staff days, 2 days, ended at the same time, where traditionally there was always a day or two after for buildings to kind of button things up, get things ready to go, and just do kind of a wrap up for the year. But like I said, our calendar doesn't necessarily reflect that this year. Our calendar, reflected, without the 2 snow days, that student and staff days were ending on the 17th. So.
Would it be a full day on the 17th, or would it be a half day?
Traditionally, it's a half day on
It's
the
for the
last
early
day.
release for students and staff, yeah.
Further discussion? Kristen, Meredith, Tim, Amanda?
I'm comfortable with the students and teachers being waived those 2 days, particularly going into a weekend and staff come back 2
Okay.
days. You also got to consider that staff probably has children as well that won't, they won't have school that following week, so they got to figure that out. And I think a good end to the year is to wrap up that Friday.
I think
I kind of feel the same way especially because it's at the end of the year. If it was somewhere else, everybody's ready to be done. And I just think having people come back, from the year that we've had, I just feel like it would be nice if we could waive for everybody.
I do think it would be a very nice gesture of the board to waive these 2 days for staff. The staff have worked hard. I think the board recognized that. I think the staff would be highly appreciative of the board giving them these 2 days of pay. So,
Okay. Amanda, Meredith?
I'm fine with it.
I would also support it.
Okay, thank you. Lance?
I agree, I'm also in favor.
Okay. So your motion was to waive
the 2 days for
the
both.
2 days for
Students.
students,
And staff.
teachers, and support staff.
Right.
Didn't we waive the days last year too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are a lot of things that were waived last year.
We also had some that turned into professional development days last year.
Correct.
So there were teacher days beyond the student year. The last 2 years, we've had that where we've done SU level professional development after the end of the school year, not making up extra days.
And I want to say that typically I'm not in favor of washing these days, but for 2 years we've done it because they've been hard years. So every year is different. I don't want them to think this is going to become a practice every year, that if we have a snow day, we're going to get rid of it. But considering the year we've had and everything else, yeah, that's why it came out that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice gesture, it sounds good, and you know, like Tim's perspective that some of those teachers might have kids that aren't in school, so, you know, that makes me wanna, well, why not just not waive any days and just continue out the school year as normal?
But some of their
yeah,
some of their kids are in different schools, so.
Yeah, that too, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
You know, that's life though too, and, you know, I don't know.
Okay, further discussion? So the motion on the floor is to waive the final 2 days and make the last day of school Friday, June 17th with a 1 p.m. dismissal?
Noon.
A noon dismissal?
Early release.
Noonish.
Half day, early release.
Yeah, early release.
Pretty soon, we're not even gonna be there on Friday.
Every school has a slightly different.
Okay, early
exact minute,
release,
so
early
is
release.
safer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Early release.
Yes.
For students, teachers, and support staff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Motion passes by majority. All right, moving on to policies. All of these policies are, oh no, they're not all. So we're gonna do the second read policies first. The first is F11, limited English proficiency students. H2, community use of school facilities. B4, board commitment to non-discrimination. C2, public participation at board meetings. D8, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act compliance. D9, family medical leave. E3, tobacco prohibition. E5, travel reimbursement. G7, educational support system. G8, grade advancement, retention, promotion, and acceleration of students. E4, electronic communication use and retention. F13, participation of home study students. Special education. C3, school visits by board members. D2, professional development. And E1, safety security of school facilities. Those are all second reads.
I'll move to adopt those policies with the note to correct the blank in E3.
Okay, so Eric's motion is to adopt all second read policies with the correction to E3 and replace it with GRCSU. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. For the first read policies, we have A1, role of policy. F15, student attendance. F16, use of restraint and seclusion. G9, responsible computer network and internet use. D4, volunteers and work study students. F9, admission of non-resident tuition students. G6, complaints about instructional materials. And F24, student freedom of self-expression in school-sponsored media. So questions, corrections, suggestions should be directed to the policy committee, and everyone should be receiving that agenda and policy meeting information via their GRCSU emails. The next meeting date is May 25th. We will continue hybrid meetings, so you can be here or online. And I think you saw Christine did request via the email, if you plan to be here in person, to please let her know. So she's only making packets for people that are here or people that want packets. Okay? All right.
We actually missed the VSBIT and VSBA at the beginning of the agenda.
Okay. Oh, are we nominating someone new for that?
Yes, we need someone for that.
Okay. So who would like to be the VSBIT representative?
Well, this is just for the VSBA,
Oh, the annual meeting?
yeah.
Would you
right?
like to do that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aren't you going to be there too?
I go to the meetings, but I find them annoying.
Well,
Did I say it? I say
Public
it.
meeting, you know.
I say it in the meeting that I find them trifling, so I don't agree with their philosophy and their, wishy-washy behavior about things, so.
Should tell them.
Yeah, I'm
You
pretty,
mean she hasn't?
I'm pretty sure I have. I think I've gotten muted a couple times, maybe.
Yeah, I don't mind being the VSBA voting delegate, but last year we had like a backup just in case. you know.
I'll be there online.
Okay.
Yeah, not a problem. But, yeah, so do you want to do the,
I'd be an alternate if you need an alternate.
okay, that's great.
There you
You
go.
want to make the motion, Mike?
Does it have to be a motion, or do you just appoint
No,
as
we
chair?
It should
It
be
has
a
to be a
motion
motion?
because Eric's a voting member, would be voting on the
Yeah,
amendment, not amendments, what are we calling
the
them?
resolution.
Resolutions, yeah,
Any changes to the bylaws,
right.
and then, later this year, that will probably be brought to this board just like last year. So.
Okay, so would you like to make the motion, Tina?
Make a motion for Eric to be the representative from our board to the BSBA, with Meredith as the alternate.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we do have, I think, two issues to go into executive session for personnel and contracts. So a motion would be in order at 7:49 by Lynette to enter executive session. And because we're here and other people are there and we have the camera, we're going to say at 8 o'clock we will come back for executive session. So are you sending them a link, Chris?
They should have a link up.
Okay, so everybody that's virtual, if you didn't receive a link from Chris for executive session, can you just let us know now?
It'll be voting members only.
Yeah, voting members only. So Meredith, Tim, Kristen, Lance, and Amanda.
I did not get one.
Tight quarters around here.
Okay.
You're on the list, Kristen, so I'll resend it, but
Meredith, Tim, Lance, Amanda, did you get it? Okay, they all have it.
Not here now.
Okay. All right, so we are going to go silent here so he can pick up the camera, and we will join you in executive session at 8 o'clock. Thank you.